Hey, hi, howdy, hello, hola. How are you? Hope everybody's doing great this evening. Here we are for another weekend English class weekly roundup. Today's topic is going to be space. This is what we talked about throughout the week at English at the Ready Club. You'll see in the bottom corner our little logo. So if you're looking for longer term English classes, and if you'd like to learn along with me in a group setting, join English at the Ready, or at least check us out. We have a club, and it's membership month by month. And then we also have video classes that you can purchase just a course package of video classes. These are informal classes. I do these for fun. I do these because I enjoy talking about and recapping the week and a lot of the interesting questions that we have in my. I'm teaching 26 group classes throughout the week. And then we have our two video classes that we do. So some of the information on our 4 slides this evening come from the video lessons that I've produced for the week. What else do I want to say about this? This has been a fun topic. There's a lot to say. There's a lot to talk about. Many of our students were a little bit intimidated, a little bit scared of the vocabulary at first. Space. I don't know anything about space. These words are going to be hard. These words are difficult because they're words we don't use as often. They're not difficult because the words themselves are difficult, even though maybe they are. They're a little bit more scientific, right, than your regular phrasal verbs or just regular verbs, nouns. What else am I forgetting? Your other parts of speech. These words draw from Latin and Greek roots often. Science words very frequently take a little bit from the Latin and Greek languages. You'll see in this class, especially from the Greek language. There's a reason for that. Let's go to the first slide. First word is astronaut. You'll see two different colors. Astro. First word here, astro. Does anyone know what that means? If you know, type in chat. Same thing for not. Not's in a different color also. These are both Greek roots that have a meaning in the Greek language. By themselves in English, they don't mean anything. I'll give you just a moment to think. Most students, actually many students knew Astro. There are many, I would say probably about 60%, roughly, just over half of my classes had someone figure out this word. And that's the interesting thing and the great thing about mastering root words, Latin and Greek roots, is it opens up the door for understanding a lot of vocabulary, a lot of words that you wouldn't know otherwise. But because you know or you can identify, see this root, you can figure out the meaning in the context of the sentence. And it may not be perfect, but it's close. Astronaut. First, let's talk about Greek and why in the world the English language has Greek words that make up some of it. English has many Greek word roots because Greek was the language of scholarly and scientific discussion in Europe during the Renaissance in the 1400s. The Renaissance was roughly the 1400s to around 1650, somewhere in that ballpark. So around 250 years, 1400 to 1650. This is when many English words were recorded. It's when they were first written down, saved, paper form, book form, for a long period of time. Some books that relate Greek and Latin to English from the 1400s still exist. We can still, they're very old. You have to be very careful with them. Usually, if you're in university, your university may have a section called special collections. If you're at a big state school, I think state schools always have a special collections section. If you're at a smaller university, may or may not. You may or may not have one, but you can at least have access to probably the microfilm. And I wish my friend Sean were here. We may actually interview Sean one of these days. He's a university librarian, which sounds boring, right? He does some really cool stuff. He does some very, very cool things. He's at a tech university, and He is their business specialization. May not be the exact title, but the idea is he works with their business students to help them find the resources they need for their scholarly research and for their real life projects. He gets calls often or emails often from students who've been asked by their company that they're interning with to ask school librarian if they can get certain information about demographic information or who's buying what, because the school pays a lot of money to have access to certain databases that are really, really expensive for individuals, private business. So if they can dip into the academic system and use their resources, you really can't blame them. But he gets a lot of emails. And again, we'll talk to him one day, I think. That would be a really interesting conversation. Anyway, many English words were recorded in the Renaissance period. They continue to be used for their precision and ability to form complex descriptive words. This is why we use them. And this is what I told my students all throughout the week. When you know Greek roots, same for Latin roots, when you know these, it opens up a whole new avenue of understanding, and it makes some of these really complex. I didn't copy that part. I did leave out a part, but these words in particular, 1400s to the 1650s, the Renaissance period, was a time where there was a lot of scientific growth, right? We started learning about stars, astrology, astronomy, astrophysics to an extent, and we began naming planets and naming stars, recording, which is also very important, recording, coding what we're seeing. So the words were built from the Greek words, which became root words of what are now English words. You follow me? I said the word words a lot, but it's a key. The Greek words were taken to become part of the English words. Greek roots, Latin roots. Astronaut. Astro means star. Why not came up already? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Astro means star. Naut or naughties, N-A-U-T-E-S, naughties, means sailor. So this literally means star sailor. Can anyone think of any other words that use astro or not? What if I say, this is a person who travels underwater? They travel under the sea. Astronaut. Does anyone know a Greek root for water? Hydro's one. Aqua. Aquanaut. Aquanaut. What do Russians call their star travelers? Cosmonauts. Cosmonauts. Cosmo, I don't believe means star. Cosmos, I believe, cosmos. The cosmos are the heavenly bodies in the sky. So I do believe it's a wider concept than astro. So cosmonaut, astronaut, same idea though. Star traveler, astral body traveler. Nautilus. There's a creature in the sea. It has a shell, and it's this beautiful shell that, what is it, a helix? No, it is a helix, I think, though. Anyway, it has this beautiful curved shell and little tentacles that come out. Looks something like a squid, but in a shell. It's a nautilus. It's a sailor of the sea, right? When we talk about sailing vocabulary or vocabulary that has to do with boats, we talk about nautical vocabulary. So there it is again. Nautical, nautilus. We're on Twitch. On Twitch, I can't imagine people watching Twitch have never heard of League of Legends. I played League of Legends when it first came out a long time ago, and it's been a really long time since I last played it. There's a character named Nautilus, right? Again, there's that sea creature that's a nautilus. Then there's a character in this video game called Nautilus, sailor. And he throws an anchor, pulls the anchor in, and pulls in other characters. Astronaut. So the key again here is Greek words are still used because they have a certain precision and ability to form complex, descriptive words, especially in the sciences, medicine, astronomy, physics. You'll see a lot of Greek roots in these topics because they became popular, or at the very least, they became popularly and commonly recorded during the Renaissance. Here's another one. Telescope. Telescope. Do any of you have any ideas what telescope means? Tele. I'll say first, what is a telescope? And second, what does tele mean by itself? And what does scope mean by itself? I'll give you just a moment here in chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to pause the video and answer this question in the comments. And we can talk about it there, and we'll see you got it right. Anybody? Anyone? Telescope. Astronomers use powerful telescopes to study the universe. So you'll notice I didn't define this. Not yet. Astronomers, there's Astro again, astronomers, nomers. This sounds like the Latin word nomen to me. This sounds like names. Nomenclature, naming. The naming of astral bodies, the naming of stars. Something to do with people who study the stars. Astrology, astronomy, right? The study of the stars. Astronomers use powerful telescopes to study the universe. Any ideas yet? Too shy. That's all right. Tele. Tele means far off, at a distance. Let's turn this Greek root over a little bit. Tele. What could tele mean? Or what are some words? What are some words that use the prefix tele? Tele, very common words. Television, television, telephone. If you like science fiction, teleportation, teleport. What else? Teleworking. We can telework. Tele means far off, at a distance. Telephone, I can phone someone, and phone is a Greek root for sound. So I can hear someone, call someone from a long distance, from far away. Telephone. I'm not in Paris right now, but I watch the Olympics almost every day. I watch the Olympics on my television. Vision, see it. I can see it. I can watch it from a long distance away. Television. Telescope. Now what's scope? What does scope mean? Scope. Telescope. Astronomers use these to see a long way away, see far off in the distance. We know telescope means to see. Means see. Telescope. See far off. See a long distance. Telescope. So again, when you know your roots, it makes it easy to make a guess as to what this word could mean. Even if you don't know exactly what it means, even if you don't get it right the first time, it still gives you a huge clue for understanding the word. This is a phrasal verb. And this is a phrasal verb that, in my opinion, is a must-know for contemporary modern-day English. Space out. What does space out mean? Anyone in chat? Space out. Have you spaced out today? When do you space out? What makes you space out? There's someone. When you're not paying attention, that's exactly it. When you aren't paying attention, when your mind is somewhere in space, you space out. Phrasal verb. When you become distracted, and not pay attention to what's happening around you. Space out. We all space out sometimes. I space out in classes. No, well, I try not to. But sometimes I have something else on my mind, or I could hear the baby crying upstairs. Little Lily will turn 1, by the way. My daughter turns 1 this week. It's crazy. I can't believe it. We have 3 girls, but the baby turns 1, and it's just, this year has flown by. It's unbelievable. Space out. If I spaced out, I might miss something with my little girl. Space out. For example, everyone spaces out during long, boring meetings. During classes this week, this was the example everyone gave. They said, oh, when a meeting, Jacob, when a meeting is long, a meeting is boring, I space out. I don't stay in it. My brain goes somewhere else and flies through the dust. One person said flies through the dust. Okay. Flies through the air, goes into space. Space out. Yesterday, I totally spaced out. This is something I feel like I would say in real life. Yesterday, I totally spaced out when she told me her name. Right? I totally spaced out. I do this all the time. People nowadays, I have so many students. I remember their names well, but I meet so many people and I talk to so many people that often I space out and I forget to use a mnemonic, make an association to remember names. I try not to do this, but very, very often I do space out and I do miss their name. Space out. What makes you guys space out? Again, if you're watching on YouTube later, pause the video here and let me know in the comments, when do you space out? If you're here on Twitch, let me know here. We'll talk about it for a moment. But my students, their number one response this week, everyone spaces out during long, boring meetings. Me, easy. If you watch any of the gaming streams on Twitch, easy. Her name's Amy. Amy's someone I've known for a long time. We had a class together at university. It was an immunology class. So a fairly difficult, not too bad really, but fairly difficult biology class. Interesting, but at 8 in the morning, we had a professor, whose voice was so monotone. He was from Boston, and he had this voice where he talked like this. IgG, and IgG has to do with your gut, essentially. It's immunoglobulin G, right? I'm not going to go into it. I'd have to start somewhere simpler to explain it all. IgG is this, and IgG is that. And the way he would talk, and he would just ramble on and on. Okay, it's 8 in the morning. I worked late last night. I had tests coming up. We would space out in his class all the time. It was a wonder any of us passed the class, because I think we'd look around at each other and we'd throw little paper balls at you. Hey, wake up! Hey, shh, pay attention. He was a great teacher. He was a great guy. When you talk to him outside of class, fantastic. In class, I'll give you another word. His class sometimes was a snooze fest. Snooze fest. A fest is a party. So snooze is like a nap, right? A snooze fest. If you're in a class or if you're in a meeting and it's a snooze fest, it makes you want to go to sleep, right? It makes you really tired. Snooze fest. All right. So that brings us to the last slide for the evening and the end of our weekly roundup here. But the questions of the week, we had some big questions this week. These were very big. Have you ever seen a movie about space? This one, not as big as the second question. Have you ever seen a movie about space? People talked about Interstellar. People talked about The Martian. Some people talked about Star Wars and Star Trek, which I'm going to use as my example in just a little bit. How realistic do you think they are? Is it what you would imagine? People talked about the realism in some of these films being the reality of exploration, of space exploration, the anxiety, not knowing what's coming, not knowing where you're going. The unrealistic aspects were the more fantastic aspects, like, well, they went into light speed, or they teleported, or they met all these aliens that they all looked like people. All the aliens looked like humans. They were humanoid, is what we'd call them. They looked like humans. They're humanoid. Humanoid. I'll put that word in chat too. Humanoid. And that made it unrealistic for them. Is it what you would imagine? My students' imaginations were very interesting. Again, we have people from 30 plus countries, and it was interesting to hear the differences in how they would describe what they think is in outer space. Some people said, yeah, it's people, but they may be a different color, like blue or green. Maybe they have an extra pair of ears, or they have extra fingers, but I think maybe they don't speak English. No, they probably don't speak English. I think that's a given, unless they've gotten a hold of one of our satellites that we sent out, and they've been listening to the recordings contained on the, what was it? It was a copper film, I believe, in one of the original telescopes that they sent out, or it was a beacon also that they had, I believe, a copper film. I wish me would know this for sure. Would know for sure what was in that. But I do believe it was a copper film, kind of like an old cassette tape, but instead of the tape inside of the cassette, it was a copper film with a recording because it lasts long. Maybe they have that and they've been studying, English. Maybe one of them's watching the Twitch channel right now and learning English. Me, watch out, Earth. No, but others said that they don't expect to find life that looks like us. They think it will look very, very different because they believe they would also quote evolution, the theory of evolution, Darwin's theory. Well, that made for an interesting concept. That if we evolved from bacteria, well, maybe there's some bacteria that was on a meteor that fell to Earth, and that bacteria is what turned into humans after many, many, many years. Okay, that kind of fits the theory of evolution and goes along with theories of the origins of the universe. So maybe that happened on the other planets too. Maybe those bacteria just grew into big bacteria. And it's just a big single cell organism, something like you know what an amoeba is, but human size, crawling across the planet, engulfing its food. Sounds a little bit terrifying. One of my students went on and on about this, and it was a great time because it was a really fantastic idea. I told them they should write a sci-fi novel. They should write their own space travel book or movie. The second question was where it got really interesting. Again, remember, students are from 30 plus countries all around the world. And this includes different religions and different cultures. And some of them are very strong in what they believe. In those classes, one, I'll tell you, I was surprised and really happy to see how well people handled this topic in our club. I thought a few people might have an argument because I know they're very firm in their beliefs about things, but they didn't. Everyone talked very respectfully. Again, on the news, you see that we all hate each other and we're all going to fight. World War III is on the horizon. I'll tell you, in my classes, when we talk about these sensitive topics, people want to talk about it. People are willing to talk about it. And it's really and truly a wonderful thing. And it's why I continue to do what I do. I could take another job. I could easily make a lot more money. But I'll tell you, there's nothing as rewarding building these bridges like this between cultures, countries, and trying to share it with other people, saying, look, let's calm down a little bit, and things don't need to get as bad as they could get. Follow me? What do you know about the Big Bang Theory? Almost everyone had heard of it. There were a few people who said, we've never heard of this theory. And we have students who are from different areas in the Middle East. We have some students who are from different parts of Southeast Asia. I'm not going to target these areas, talk about them specifically. I'm going to leave these open to your interpretation. If you want to ask in the chat, or if you want to make a guess, I'll tell you yes or no. My intention is not to single out some country and culture and say, oh, they don't believe in the Big Bang Theory. That's not at all. Point is, do you find this theory convincing? It's a scientific. And that's what a lot of my students said. It's a theory. Theories, we don't have proof. It's not fact. It's a theory for a reason. Maybe a good theory. And most agree that the Big Bang Theory follows the science as we understand it now. Most of them, though, said, I do think, and I asked them specifically, I said, do you think something is missing? And they said, yes, I think something is missing in this Big Bang Theory argument. What is it? Well, I don't know. Dark matter. Um, Intelligent design. A lot of them did talk about until I was surprised at how many, and there were a few people that surprised me talking about intelligent design. This is the idea that an entity, generally people will think of this as God or a God. It doesn't have to be. This could be an alien race. If you think about we talk about science fiction movies, we talk about Stargate. Well, you know, you had called the Goa'uld built the pyramids, and they're ships, were giant pyramid ships flying through space. These first came to Earth and they didn't really share technology with us. They enslaved us. And then and then the slaves revolted and they took the technology and were able to use it against this alien race. Maybe this entity that created us or caused the Big Bang is something like Stargate's Goa'uld. I have no clue. Am I saying that word correctly? I don't think so, but I think it's close enough. Again, a little bit of a nerd, but I'm not going to go that far. You know what I'm saying? I had a friend who spoke Klingon in middle school. I thought it was fascinating. The guy could like carry conversation. Blew my mind as a middle school. But anyway, the Big Bang Theory. A lot of people did believe in intelligent design. And this led into some interesting conversations, again, because we have lots of people, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds. And I told them my belief when it comes to intelligent design, when it comes to the Big Bang. The way I grew up was Protestant Christian. That's how I grew up. That's my foundation. Does it influence my beliefs now? Of course it does. Absolutely. My base foundation belief is probably still in line with what I learned growing up. But I've lived a lot of places. Lived in China, lived in Argentina, had friends from all over the place. I've been teaching English since 2010. So I've heard lots of really interesting takes on the Big Bang Theory, intelligent design from different cultural perspectives. And I'm more and more convinced that this molecule in the beginning, this extremely dense, full of energy molecule, does not disqualify the possibility of there being a God, of there being an entity. I'm going to call it an entity for just the sake of neutrality. That was either that molecule or it created that molecule. Because there's a lot of random chance, a lot of things that, I mean, sure, I'm human. My brain is only so big and there's only so much I can comprehend. But I don't think that the Big Bang Theory excludes the possibility of there being some form of design. I'm not saying aliens. I think aliens create. Unless you want to call this entity an alien, then I guess by a technicality, that entity that doesn't live on Earth might be an alien. As a technicality, maybe. I think we could argue that if we wanted to. But this super dense molecule, when it exploded and all the other molecules began forming around it, and we entered an era, an epoch. We entered an epoch, a time period. Often when we talk about periods of time and events that formed the Earth, formed the stars, that caused certain adaptations in animals, we call these epochs. So we had the molecular epoch was first. Lots of molecules combined and changed and came together. Those molecules, just like when you mix some chemicals in a petri dish in a chemistry lab, you can see them start forming clouds. What forms clouds? Any ideas? What forms clouds? Gases. Gases. So the next epoch was the gas epoch, and then so on and so forth. But my point is, the theory of the Big Bang Theory, makes sense scientifically. And even when you observe things on a small scale, and then you can run computer calculations, works. The math works. The idea works with what we understand now, right? But then again, what is the universe? Is it a big bubble? Like if you think about the Earth's atmosphere, we live in a bubble. And then you think about the solar system, it's a bubble. think about our galaxy, the Milky Way. It's a bubble. There are more galaxies. There are more solar systems. The universe, okay? If it's the next bubble, what's outside of that bubble? I kind of hope Baboon, if Bubble's watching, saying bubble over and over again. Bubble. We have one of my followers from Thailand, someone who's been around for a long time. His gamer tag is Bubble. Anyway, what's outside of that bubble? And that's the big question. How does space work? Does it bend over onto itself? Is the multiverse a real thing? I have no answers for questions, nor does anyone else. I'd say some of the leading scientists may have some really interesting ideas, but it's still a theory because we don't know yet. We just don't. Again, in my philosophy classes in university, I would always say, they would say, "Oh, Jacob, you grew up in a Protestant Christian family." Well, yeah, okay. Obviously, you believe in destiny. You believe in fate. That's what I'm going to say. You believe in fate, that your destiny is written in the stars. There's an entity, there's a God that already knows what you're going to do. No, I don't believe that. Well, okay, I do believe that. I do. I believe that there's an entity, maybe, that if it is, as the stories were told when I was young, if it knows everything, then it knows the decisions I'm going to make. So that's not free will, that's determinism. Then you get into this great debate about free will and determinism, right? Free will and determinism. Free will, you make your own choices and you guide your life the way you want to. Determinism, it's written in the stars, to use an idiom, it's written in the stars, and you can't change your fate. I do believe in free because I make my own choices. But maybe there's an entity that knows what I'm going to. Oh, well, that means that you don't have free will. Yeah, no, it does. Choices. I make choices. And we would just go back and forth like this in philosophy classes back in university, and people would get mad. I had a girl turn around and look at me and go, gobble, 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 like a turkey, gobbled at me because she was confounded. She had nothing else to say. Again, when we get to this conversation, it's all very personal. You get into beliefs, you get into cultural things, and I was so impressed with my students this week because they all talked to each other, spoke with such incredible respect for one another. Again, these are people from 30 plus places. Some places that we hear on the news would never respect someone who didn't believe there was a specific entity who was guiding our lives. All of these people were very, very good and very kind, talking to each other. That's my takeaway for this lesson today. We are people. People are people the world over. We're more similar than we are different. That's it. That's all for this evening. Thank you guys for being here. We had quite a few people in today. I can see a lot of people checking it out at least. Hey, if you checked it out, make sure if you're not following, please do. Because once we get up to 50 followers, I can add channel points and just do more fun things along with the stream. Plus, it helps other people to see it as well. And I know there are a lot of people around the world who watch Twitch, practice here, and learn English. That's my purpose doing this on the week. I enjoy it. My way to put a little bit of free English lesson content out there in the internet atmosphere and see who's. All right, everyone, take care. Be good. Have a good start to your week. Again, my daughter turns 1 this week. It's going to be crazy. We'll see. I'll let you know how it feels next week to have a 1-year-old girl. It's wild. Anyway, take care, you all. Good night. Bye-bye.